Look at your own hand right now. That color, whatever shade it is, isn't random. It isn't cultural. It isn't recent. It's the visible record of a 5 million-year war. Your ancestors fought against the sun, and you're wearing the result on your skin every single day without ever thinking about it. So let's start at the beginning, not with race, not with geography, but with a single brutal problem that every human ancestor had to solve or die trying. Somewhere around 2 million years ago, our early ancestors lost most of their body hair. This wasn't cosmetic. It was survival engineering, as early humans in East Africa began walking longer distances to hunt on the open savanna. Overheating became a genuine, constant threat. Losing thick body hair allowed sweat glands, and humans have roughly 2 million of them, to actually cool the skin efficiently. But that solution created an entirely new problem. Bare skin, under equatorial sun, was now completely exposed to something that had never mattered as much before: ultraviolet radiation. Here's what's strange. That new vulnerability didn't just risk sunburn. It risked something far more dangerous, quietly, over a lifetime. Deep beneath the surface of your skin, there's a molecule your body depends on constantly: folate. It's essential for cell division, and critically, for healthy fetal development during pregnancy. Research has shown that intense ultraviolet radiation can break down folate in the bloodstream. In a hot, sun-drenched environment with newly bare skin, early humans with less natural protection would have faced a quiet, invisible risk. Not sunburn, but reproductive failure, generation after generation, without ever knowing why. And this is where evolution did something it does best. It didn't explain the problem, it just ruthlessly rewarded whatever solved it. The answer was already inside human skin, waiting to be turned up. Melanin, the pigment responsible for skin color, functions as a natural, built-in sunscreen. Individuals producing more of it, specifically eumelanin, the darker form, had better protection against UV damage, better folate preservation, and higher reproductive success in intensely sunny environments. Over hundreds of thousands of years, in populations living near the equator, this wasn't a preference. It was a filter, quietly deciding who reproduced successfully and who didn't. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Skin color, something so many human societies have spent centuries assigning meaning to, wasn't shaped by culture, or intelligence, or worth. It was shaped by something far colder, a molecule's ability to survive sunlight without breaking down. But that's not the end of the story, because if darker skin was such a powerful advantage, the next question becomes obvious. Why isn't every human on Earth dark-skinned? And that's where something even stranger happened. As early human populations began migrating out of Africa, roughly 70,000 years ago, they moved into regions with dramatically less sunlight. Northern Europe, Northern Asia. Places where the sun sits low in the sky for months at a time. And there, the exact same pigment that had been a life-saving shield became a liability. Your body needs ultraviolet light for something else entirely, producing vitamin D, a nutrient essential for calcium absorption and bone development. In low sunlight environments, heavily pigmented skin blocks too much UV radiation to produce sufficient vitamin D naturally. Without it, populations faced a different, equally serious threat: rickets, weakened bones, and impaired immune function, this time from too much protection rather than too little. So the same evolutionary pressure that once demanded more melanin near the equator began demanding less of it in northern latitudes. Lighter skin allowed just enough UV radiation through to keep vitamin D production alive in places where sunlight was scarce and precious. This wasn't a different rule. It was the same rule, solving the opposite problem. And here's what's genuinely remarkable. This didn't happen once. It happened repeatedly, independently, in different populations, in different parts of the world, arriving at strikingly similar genetic solutions without any contact between them. Geneticists studying this have found that lighter skin evolved through different genetic mutations in European and East Asian populations, meaning two separate human lineages independently discovered, through nothing but survival pressure and time, roughly the same answer to roughly the same problem. Think about what that means. Skin color isn't evidence of separation between human groups. It's evidence of the opposite, the same evolutionary logic, running in parallel, producing convergent solutions across a shared species, facing a shared environmental puzzle. But here's the terrifying part, the one that should sit uncomfortably in your chest for a moment. For most of human history, this deeply biological, deeply logical adaptation, a molecule calibrating itself to sunlight, became the foundation for some of the most devastating systems humans have ever built. Slavery, colonization, segregation, entire hierarchies of human worth, constructed on top of a trait that exists purely because of geography and UV exposure, not because of any actual difference in capability, intelligence, or humanity. The very same pigment that once quietly protected a fetus's folate levels on the African savanna was later twisted into justification for some of history's worst atrocities. That's not a coincidence of science. That's a failure of interpretation, repeated across centuries, by people who mistook a sunlight adaptation for something it never was. And this is where everything changes, if you let it. Because genetic research has confirmed something that should reshape how you think about human difference entirely. Skin color, measured against the deep genome, represents an almost trivial fraction of human genetic variation. Two people with the same skin tone can be more genetically different from each other than two people with completely different skin tones. Melanin is a response to latitude. It is not, and never was, a marker of anything deeper. So here's the full picture. Your skin color exists because early humans lost their body hair to stay cool, exposing skin to a UV threat that quietly endangered fertility, which pushed melanin production upward near the equator. Then, as populations migrated into low sunlight regions, that same pigment became a barrier to vitamin D, and evolution pushed it back down, independently, more than once, in different corners of the world. Every shade of human skin on this planet is the same story, written in a different climate. Not competing stories, not hierarchical stories. The same 5 million year negotiation between sunlight and survival, expressed differently depending on how much UV radiation your ancestors happened to stand under. You didn't choose your skin color. Neither did anyone else in any generation, going back hundreds of thousands of years. It was decided by latitude, sunlight, and folate, long before anyone had a word for race, and long before anyone twisted a survival adaptation into something it was never meant to be. The sun wrote this story on your skin. Everything humans added on top of it, we made up ourselves. If something as personal as your own skin turns out to be written entirely by sunlight and survival, imagine what else about you has a hidden scientific story. That's what Yedd is for. Like this video and subscribe.